Dude.
Well, hello there, peoples, places, and things. How are we doing today? Welcome to the Geek Chat. This is the Week in Geek. We're going to talk about some geeky shit today. And of course, as always, please feel free to join the conversation out there in the chat and give us your thoughts on our topics that we talk about today. Of course, two main topics that we're talking about today are in the name of the chat tonight. Two things that I want to talk about. First thing, of course, you knew we were going to talk about it, but so we really, I mean, it's almost over. For those of you who are tired of hearing us talk about this, it's almost over. Okay, it's almost over, and then we're probably not going to talk about it much. I mean, until next year when there's going to be more stuff. But for now, it's going to be over for a while, and it'll pass. So, topic number one tonight is going to be The Walking Dead. Since tomorrow is the series finale, that's it. It's over. It's not really over. Let's be honest here. They're going to be starting. They're going to have at least 4 shows next year because they're going to have Fear the Walking Dead, the Rick and Michonne show, the Maggie and Negan show, and Daryl's getting his own damn show. Plus, who knows whatever the fuck else. So it's not like it's over. It's over. But the main show that was a thing of great, joyous, like, pleasure every Sunday for several years, many years, from like 2010 or 2011, whatever it was.
2011. I looked it up the other day. Yeah.
2011, all the way up until I would say 2018. And then that's kind of when, or was it 2018, 2019? I don't know. It was before the pandemic when it just kind of, and then it's kind of had a few good moments here and there, but like very, very few considering it's been 4 seasons since it's been like legitimately good. And I have absolutely no hope that the season finale is going to be like redeeming in really any significant way. And I hate to say that, Duke, because I know you're trying to maintain hope. I know much like Luke Skywalker, hope is like surging within you.
Yes.
I was going to say there can be no truth to spare without hope.
I want to hold on because it was so good in the beginning. I understand that it has had its rough parts in the past few years, especially since Rick has left. Yes. But I'm holding out hope for tomorrow night for everything to be rectified with a good ending and a good comeback. As long as I get those two things, I will be able to ride off into the sunset. Because I believe they're going to do the show right. But I just want to make sure
I don't know about that.
I just want to tell you, Duke, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. It is going to end simply with more left hanging than we have right now as we speak here today. This next episode is just going to open up more loose threads that they are hoping you will stick around for the other shows that are coming out to hope that they get tied up. That is what I'm saying is going to happen here tomorrow on this show. And I'm sorry to say that, Duke. I don't want to disappoint you.
I will say this. I hope, Duke, that you are right. I just am in Matt's camp, and I don't have faith in them anymore.
The problem is that Matt, I'm going to admit now, Matt is right. Because for some reason, Daryl's going to go to France. And for some reason, Maggie and Negan are going to join up and go play Escape from New York. So that is 100% true. What sense does it make for Daryl to go to France and Maggie and Negan to go to New York if Rick comes back tomorrow?
Yeah,
and saves them all. There's no reason.
Yep.
So
no fucking reason.
In my scared, nervous opinion, like I want it to go that way, but what reason do they have to leave?
Mm-hmm. What would y'all do if it ended where it turns out that everything that we've seen so far was Rick just having a coma dream and he wakes up and that's how it ended? But
in the hospital.
Caveat to that is when he wakes up from the coma dream is when the zombie apocalypse starts. So he goes and gathers all the people beforehand.
No.
And they prepare.
like Glenn has been his nurse the whole time.
Yeah.
And like
it's like Wizard of Oz, where all the people around there like, and you were there, and you were there, and you, and you.
Like, Negan's like the dickhead patient next to him. That's always like yelling for applesauce.
Been bitching the whole time.
The governor's the doctor.
I thought of another really hilariously messed up way for them to end it that would piss a lot of people off. I mean, you haven't seen last week's episode, but there's a big horde. Like Judith wakes up or whatever like that, and you just see in the crowd that there's a zombie that's walking that looks like Rick, and right next to him is a zombie that looks like Michonne.
Yeah, there you go. Just fuck everybody else. If you're gonna do it, just do it. Well, just get it over with. Just smack us all in the face and go, ha 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 ha, fuck you. If they're going to do it, don't give me hope that it's going to fucking turn into anything good.
Yeah.
Just tell us to go fuck ourselves like you've been doing just a little bit for the last 4 years. That's what you should do.
A horrible ending in the comics, like killed in his bed.
Yeah. Just fucking do it. Just hey, you know this show you've been watching for over a decade of your life? Yeah, fuck you. Ha ha, fuck you. We're just going to end it the worst way possible.
Now I understand why Robert Kirkman, because I did some research on the lawsuit he had against AMC and why Kirkman, you don't see him a lot anymore.
No.
And
he was very vocally like the face of the show for a very long time.
Yeah. So do you know why he's suing them?
I heard about the lawsuit, but I don't know what the details were.
Because AMC, because Frank Darabont won his lawsuit.
Yeah.
But now Kirkman is suing them because when he sold The Walking Dead to them, they promised him a certain amount of the profits from the show.
Mm-hmm.
But AMC did this super shady thing where they sold the show back to themselves in a shell company. And so, like, they sold it to their production company, that's AMC. So he got the money from the sale from AMC to AMCB, and that's what they gave him instead of
and nothing else after that.
Yes,
that's fucked up.
I always thought like, oh, he's just being greedy, and he is not being greedy because that's messed up.
And now they're starting a whole Walking Dead universe with multiple shows and all this stuff, and he's not getting any of it. Yeah,
and he said like, I've made more money off the comics than I did the TV show, and that's wrong. He's the creator, dude. That's wrong. I know that like he sold his rights. That's a part of the business, and that's a part of like.
Yeah, but he sold his rights, saying I get a cut of this, and then they're like, okay, and they go, guess what? You don't get a cut of it anymore because we sold it. Yeah, but you sold it to yourself.
Yeah, to their
what
like.
The fuck?
That's how it was explained. It could, but it's like they sold it to themselves, so that they only got the profits from that. And so anyways, that's my hope. My hope is that I will be honest. At best, I think we get a cutscene, we get a radio transmission, we get like a Rick is in a cage or something, and we see his face. Rick's not gonna show up and save everyone.
Real quick, I want to go through, for those that don't mind, I want to go through some of the potential leaks that came out about this. Hopefully you don't mind. I don't know if they're true. Even the guy who released all this information says, I don't know if this is all true, if this is all going to happen. I can only tell you, because basically it's guy who
text me when you're done. I don't want to listen.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I want it to be raw, man.
Well, maybe it is wrong. I don't know. The guy who released it just said, look, I made friends with somebody who worked on the set. I live in Atlanta. I know the person. And this is what I gleaned from the last few months and things I know. And he's like, and he even made it real clear. He's like, I don't know if this is all true. The things that I heard and the things that were said and the things that I saw for myself. And he's like, and there's also was a whole entire week where there was a bunch of filming where they literally put up these huge, like fucking 20-foot fences that they covered with tarps over an entire like fucking area of this area where they were shooting. where it's like nobody could see in because they came back after they had finished filming to reshoot new scenes for this finale. And he says, and I have no idea what happened in those. I don't know if that's changes or if that's additions or if that's just, more of the same. I don't know because he's like, I didn't see Rick. I didn't see Andrew Lincoln. I don't know any of that stuff. Like he was like being very, in my opinion, seemed upfront and honest. Like, look, I'm just telling you what I've been able to glean from this. I have no idea if any of this is true. So this is a guy that posted on Reddit and just, put everything out there and said, I'm just telling you guys what I was able to put together and what people had told to me. But in the end, there was an entire week of filming of things that happened that could have changed everything completely. And I have no idea what those things were. That was kind of the gist of what he put out there. And so this has been being like reported on fucking social media. A lot of the news websites and stuff, movie websites and that kind of shit have been reporting on these quote unquote, maybe potential, spoilers, maybe not. We don't know, because even the guy was being honest. He wasn't trying to claim like he knows everything. So I have no idea if any of this stuff is true. I don't know. Not a clue. Have no idea. You hear what I'm saying, Duke?
I do, man, but I just
okay.
I get it.
Duke wants
to Daryl's gonna die. No, I'm.
They all die because more nukes get dropped.
No, essentially, honestly, if I'm to like, and not to say what he said, but a lot of what he described was exactly what I'm saying, which is this last episode is going to essentially open up more things instead of tying up loose ends that have already been laid out in this show. It's going to attempt to tie up a bunch of loose ends really quickly towards the beginning of the episode, and then spend the entire rest of the episode just opening up new things that they hope we will continue to watch other shows for.
Yeah.
And not really, close out any stories per se, and just leave the door open kind of for everything. And that's essentially what I got from all the information that came out.
There's as much as this is a finale and there's like a lot per se going on, there's not that much that you have to tie up. No. You got to tie up, you got to free them. You got to kill Pamela and save a few people. But like, this has all been rushed. It hasn't been flushed out right.
No,
there's not enough. Like, I cared more for the people of Woodbury.
Oh yeah, by far. Like, that was a way better storyline than this Commonwealth bullshit.
Then the Commonwealth, they should have just decided not to do it. They really should have.
Well, here's the thing: they've spent way longer than they should have on this storyline, time-wise, episode-wise. Yet in that many episodes, given us very little story.
Yeah.
Like, it's been drawn out and dragged out. The amount of story we've gotten so far could have been wrapped up in about 8 episodes, and now we're going into let's see, the Commonwealth storyline started season before last, so that was 16. Now we're into 24. So we're talking about 40 episodes, and this storyline, the amount of story we've gotten so far could have been wrapped up in a half season in an 8-episode run.
Yeah.
So they've drug out 8 episodes to now last 40 fucking episodes over 2 seasons. And it's just been done very poorly. This whole fucking Commonwealth story. The Commonwealth storyline wasn't even that big in the comics.
No.
And it wasn't even that good in the I mean, it was okay.
Yeah.
But like, certainly it was better in the comics than it has been on the show. But it was by far not one of the better storylines in the comics.
And we what were the Reapers? Like, what was that about?
Yeah,
that was we were literally fighting the Reapers in season 11. Like, why? For
no reason, just some new made up group. When we should have been focusing, when we've already introduced the Commonwealth and the idea of the Commonwealth, and we've seen some of them, and we sent characters to the Commonwealth, and then we spend 8 episodes. The main story being the Reapers that amount to nothing in the end, that are not, they're like fucking 12 dudes that are like not that big of a threat if you just don't go to their fucking hideout and they're some like pseudo religious fucking whatever the fuck they are, and ultimately they mean almost nothing. No, the only impetus for the storyline was, well, we need food and we know there's food there. Well, realistically, it's like, but these guys are a lot of trouble, and there are probably fucking 20 other places we could go to get food, or 20 other things we could do. Like, I don't know. Let's all travel south in this cold, freezing fucking winter when we have no food, and Alexandria has basically been completely fucking trashed from all the shit that happened the season before, and you're still there while children are starving. Like, how about you not go take on the heavily armed 12 dudes living in this one place when from what I can remember, what they actually ended up having wasn't even that significant as far as like supplies. Well, like you spent an entire season telling this shitty story about these 12 religious dude, militia motherfuckers, instead of focusing on the Commonwealth.
So we spent way too much time on things that didn't matter this season in the past 2 seasons, in my opinion. So we've got to do a lot of fixing we'll see. The only thing I have hope for really is the Rick show. Mm-hmm. I have hope for that.
I have hope for that just because I don't think they're gonna fuck up a Rick and Michonne show.
Yeah.
Well, I think it probably took a whole lot of fucking money and a good story to get Andrew Lincoln to come back.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you his fucking contract ran out. He was contracted to do those 3 movies. That was back in 2020. Okay. We're about to be in 2023. It is going to be 3 years later. And I guarantee you his fucking contract ran out. He did not want to fucking act. We've talked about this shit before. It's why he hasn't done shit since he left the show. Like, so you don't get him to come back, and you don't get at this point Michonne to come back when she's doing fucking movies in the MCU.
Well, she's writing this. She's writing this?
I heard something about that. Yeah, she is involved in the writing. So
yeah.
And you don't get all that if you're just like, come back for a season and we can tell some shitty fucking story. You know what I mean? You don't get that. So I have way more faith in that show than I do in anything else going on right now in this little universe.
So I mean, main predictions is more openings than not. Do you have any death predictions?
I do predict Negan's wife and or child will die.
Okay.
I believe that's how he's going to end up going with Maggie.
Yeah,
I could see that.
That's the main one I've got. I foresee, there's going to be multiple side characters that go like, what's that one dude? Is it Luke?
Yeah, the
there's multiple other side. Yeah, there's multiple other side characters that could die off. That I don't.
Big people, you think?
Main people? No. I think the main cast, which to me consists of, Daryl, Carol, Eugene, Ezekiel, Judith, Maggie, Negan, Aaron, and what's Big Boy's name that I blank on? Jerry. I think they're all safe. I don't think anything happens to any of them. I consider them all the main cast now at this point. I
think Rosita dies.
Yeah.
Rosita or Preacher Boy, maybe. I don't know.
Remember back in the day, if someone got like a couple episodes, it meant that they were going to die the end of that season. Like they did it with Herschel. Herschel got a couple good episodes, then he died. They did it with Glenn. They did it with Abraham. They did it with a bunch of people. So I think,
but that was also back when the show was much better too.
I agree.
I don't know that that's necessarily an indicator anymore.
No, they've done a redemption thing for Zeke.
Plus, I don't think Rosita or Gabriel have got good stories in the last 2 fucking years.
I agree, but I think Rosita's dead. I think Rosita's
maybe. I mean, you could be right. Like I said, I don't. And I'll be honest, Rosita, I don't even care about anymore because they've kind of just written her as a side character for a couple seasons now.
Yeah.
I don't consider her one of the main cast anymore. She's not even in every episode anymore like she used to be. So, if she dies, but I don't consider her a main cast member anymore. Gabriel is on more stuff than she is. He's more consistently on the episodes. I think he's a little bit more. I would maybe classify him as more of as a main cast member.
He's come
maybe
a long way.
Ezekiel. I don't know. They've kind of not done much with him.
Oh, I hope he doesn't die. I like him.
24 episode run. They really haven't done much with Ezekiel, short of I'm dying, and so I'm kind of simping for the Commonwealth because they're going to cure me. Like, and he was not been on every episode.
Yeah,
he's had a couple good moments with Carol, but that's about it. Mm-hmm. So,
I got a couple of things real quick.
Yes.
The we were talking about a while ago, is that the group where Daryl's lady was a part of?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. And do you think with the series finale coming up, or any way in the future, do you think they'll tie it into Fear the Walking Dead?
Because
it's in the same
universe. I don't think they'll tie it into Fear the Walking Dead in any direct way. I do think that things that will maybe happen later on in Fear the Walking Dead might be things that are consequences or characters or things like that come from the main show, The Walking Dead. But I think Fear the Walking Dead, like, we're not going to see anything from Fear the Walking Dead in this last episode. But we might see stuff from Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead later on, whether it be this next episode this summer.
Leave, yeah.
We might see that.
That's the closest thing. I don't think Morgan's going to come back and
especially if you've watched the latest season of Fear the Walking Dead, Morgan's not in any position to show back up on this show.
Right.
As far as like where he's at and what's going on, where he's they're down in fucking South Texas by the coast right now.
And Fear is doing fine.
Yeah, like Fear's doing fine. Fear is and has been for the last 2 or 3 seasons consistently a better show.
Yeah, and like they don't. The overhead is way better.
Yeah.
So like it's a popular show. So let's say it gets 2 million or 1 million or 2. It gets I think it gets like 2 million of view or an episode, which is fine. Which is pretty high for a TV show. And then
network TV show it is.
And the highest paid person is probably Morgan.
Yeah,
and he's not even that big, to be honest.
No.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I also feel like because that show is not the main show, that there's probably less interference by like people like Angela Kang and them.
Yeah,
and the show's probably left a little bit more on its own to the writers and the directors, and there's less like bullshit, like we get with The Walking Dead, which I think has been horribly interfered with when it comes to the way they treated characters, and now as new showrunners come and go, because we've had, how many showrunners have we had total? Was it four?
Four,
I think. Yeah,
Frank Darabont,
it's Darabont, Gimple,
Scott Gimple, Angela Kang,
and then what's the special effects dude was the showrunner for a while.
Greg Nicotero.
Nicotero,
Okay, so
and I will say, even though Frank Darabont clearly was the best one, I will say Nicotero, I think did a solid job in making the show fun. He didn't always do the best when it came to intricate storylines from the comics and things like that.
Yeah.
But there was a level of like, keeping the zombies entertaining, keeping the zombies a threat, that kind of thing that was always present in his episodes. That has been gone since he's no longer showrunner.
Well, and he would the thing I liked is anytime he did an episode, there was always a celebrity walker. There was walkers from Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. There was a Freddy Krueger zombie. There was Bub. There was a Bub zombie. So like all his movies, there would be like a hint, and that was kind of cool. And
he was a zombie fan, and so even though I would argue that he was not the right pick for a showrunner, he at least kept episodes fun and kept special effects good, and again kept the focus. It kept the focus in large part on the zombies being a big threat consistently, whereas Gimple and Angela Kang have not done that. And Gimple honestly wasn't showrunner for very long before they brought in Angela Kang. He was kind of like default showrunner between Nicotero and Kang, and that's just because he was the overarching fucking whatever, So, but
what y'all think about who they brought back in this last season of Fear the Walking Dead? Do you think it was necessary?
right at the last episode? Yeah, so I'm not going to give it away because I know there's several people here who haven't watched it. But I mean, I thought it was good. I was like,
I actually wasn't offended by it. Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. So, and I won't go into why or what or who or anything like that, Duke. I know you haven't watched it all and all that kind of stuff, so I don't want to spoil anything there. But I thought that character that was that episode worked, bringing that character back.
Moment, yeah.
So it worked for me, and I was like, all right, cool, let's see where this goes. So that was on the season finale this last year. So we only got one episode with that character returning, but I thought it was done well. I enjoyed that episode more than I've enjoyed any episode of Walking Dead for the last 2 years. So, for what that's worth. But a
lot of them from the Fear of the Walking Dead is going to end up migrating more up to where Walking Dead's taking place, just because of all the shit that's happening to them right now from the nukes and stuff, because of how bad the area is contaminated.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what they're kind of migrating at the end of that last season. They're kind of moving away. I'll be honest, I don't know why the fuck they stayed that long there.
I don't either.
Like, they clearly had the ability to leave, because they did. They were clearly at multiple times throughout the last couple seasons. They were in places far enough away where dealing with nuclear fallout was not an issue. So why they would keep returning? And I mean, well, I get the storyline. They kept returning because of Strand and some of the storylines going on there. But they're that's moving out into another direction now that after the end of last season. But Duke, you had an idea while we're still on this topic.
Yeah,
you had an idea of talking about some stuff. So why don't you?
First of all, I want to give it an opportunity. So I want you to pick one character that died in The Walking Dead that you liked, that had you been in control, the character stays alive. Tell me how things are different. So my example is Shane, because I thought Shane, and this is another example of a character being better in the show than the comic. Shane was like pretty one-dimensional, was killed in the first or second issue of The Walking Dead. In the comics, and in the TV show was fleshed out way better, had some depth. I thought he was an awesome character. He was season 5 Rick.
But from the beginning, yes.
But from the beginning, like Rick, I get the whole Lori thing, that's whatever. But like he was way ahead of where Rick needed to be and kind of brought that out of him. I thought the conversation was cool when Rick died, or was almost going to die, and he talked to Shane in the squad car, and Shane told him, like, you ripped that dude's throat out. That's the kind of Rick I need. Like, that was cool. That red machete, that's what I'm talking about. Like, so anyways, if Shane doesn't die, Shane stays alive. Let's say Lori dies to make things easier on everybody. So going forward, so like Shane gets him to the prison, right? So they get to the prison. I think they do better in the prison. I think he kills Tomaz and the other knuckleheads that are causing problems way earlier. They don't lose T-Dog, things like that. I think less people die because Shane is around, and maybe Shane takes the lead, and Rick's the Daryl. You know what I mean? Rick's the side guy. But people, like, if you keep Shane alive, I think he would shoot the governor right in the face the first time they met.
Oh, hell yeah.
I think if Shane is still alive, that Merle stays alive too, because Shane takes care of the governor right off the bat. None of the things that lead to Merle dying happen. Therefore, that changes Daryl going forward as a character because his brother's still alive.
Yeah,
and I think arguably makes him not as good of a character.
Correct. I would agree with you
if Merle's still around.
Yeah, because then there's the conflict of, hey, I got to hang out with my brother. So maybe they both end up dying because Daryl follows Merle off on some stupid adventure. But you have the Rick and Shane brother combo, or duo. But I think so. Maybe you do lose Daryl. Maybe Daryl and Merle go off on their own. And I'm fine. I'm fine with leaving them in that position because I have Shane. I think they go back to. I think in my scenario, they go back to Woodbury, and everybody from Woodbury comes to the prison. And they have this huge group that's much safer. I think they encounter maybe Negan at some point later on, and I think that they're a formidable force. I mean, however you want to look at it. I think that Shane drastically changes the show, puts them in a stronger position, and keeps everybody alive, and was way ahead of the curve. It took the prison. It took losing the prison. It took going to Terminus. It took post-Terminus for Rick to turn into a formidable person that he was. So that's my guy. So what do you got?
So what if Rick stayed alive and the animosity between him and Shane and Rick keeps accelerating? Would it not eventually maybe push Rick into being antagonist? You know, splitting off from the group.
It depends on Lori. Depends on fucking Lori is what it comes down to. It depends on who Lori chooses. And it depends on what happens with Judith. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of conflict over Judith and Lori between those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But I think if you're saying if Rick stays alive.
No, if Shane stays alive.
Oh.
Would it not push the animosity between him and Rick further to where Rick becomes a antagonist on the show? He splits off from the group with maybe a couple people from the group and then becomes the enemy.
No, Rick would either kill Shane or put it to bed and raise his daughter. I think that's how I see that. Rick has always known that Judith was not his daughter biologically.
Mm-hmm.
He even said that towards the end to Michonne.
Yeah, I mean
he tells Michonne, but it doesn't change who he is as a man. He still takes care of her, so I think that doesn't change much. What do you got, Matt? You got a character?
My arguably the character that I thought most didn't deserve to die and should have stuck around longer is Abraham.
I agree 100%.
I loved Abraham.
You took mine.
I think with Abraham around, we also don't lose what's her face? Why am I blanking on her name? That also died. Sasha. We don't lose Sasha.
Yeah.
I think those were two strong characters, and they were really good together. I thought that budding romance between the two of them was good. I liked it. I like the idea of those two strong characters together. I think they were like an ultimate power couple on the show.
Yep.
I think they would have been a force to be reckoned with. They would have been leaders right up there, right under Rick.
Yep.
And I as far as what changes if he's still around, I think I don't know, because he was clearly a right-hand man type, but he wasn't a leader type per se.
Yeah.
But of course that built as, when you put him and her together, they kind of created one good leader that, they both had things that backed each other up,
Well, and they killed too many people. That's my argument, was that too many people were lost over a course of like season 7 to like 9 that shouldn't have died. Like, I didn't want, like, it should have been just Glenn or arguably not Glenn and just Abraham. You could have had the same emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But arguably the two ones that, I agree. Abraham shouldn't have died. I wish he would have stayed. So
I could have seen him and Rosita running like Hilltop or some other colony.
I think he was one of these people, like at the times when Rick kind of softened up, Abraham would have been there, because Abraham would never soften up. Yeah. And so if shit needed to get done, it would have gotten done. Abraham would have been the one there to make sure that the hard choices had to be made. If somebody needed to be put down, they'd get fucking put down, even if Rick kind of, got back into his little happy corner again and stopped ripping dudes' throats out with his teeth. Abraham would have been that dude, because clearly, like, Daryl's not that guy. Daryl was straight up a Rick simp. And good for him for that. He's like he became basically Rick's little brother, who just went along with and approved anything Rick would do. Abraham didn't do that.
So they fought. They almost fought. They almost went to blows when Abraham wanted to take the bus. And Rick let him go, and then Abraham left a note like, hey, the world's going to need Rick Grimes. And they kind of linked back up and everything.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think Anybody got another one?
Would that have changed Daryl's character and the way he proceeded through the show if Abraham would have stayed alive and
not really?
became
No,
like a
Abraham. I mean, Daryl hasn't really changed. Even after Rick left, I mean, he's still the same character. I don't think really Daryl doesn't change much at all.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that changed Daryl was Merle dying. That was it. That was the only major character change we've seen in Daryl in the entire 11 seasons. There's before Merle died version of Daryl and after Merle died version of Daryl.
Yeah, he's been the same. That is very true. I think that the biggest death that was a mistake, though, was Carl.
I agree 100%.
I think legitimacy of the show. They should not have killed him. He would have continued a strong legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I really like Carl from the comic books. No offense, but that kid couldn't act for shit. And it was fine when he was little, and he was little Carl, and I didn't need Carl to fucking really be anything or do anything or whatever. But as that actor got older and they started giving him more to do on the show, it became painfully fucking obvious that this was not his forte. He did not portray a strong enough character on the show as an actor to be convincing, to have been the type of character he was supposed to be, as they were clearly trying to portray him to be in the show, which is directly from the comics, where he, becomes, I mean, eventually, when he grows up, he's kind of like the guy. And I never got that vibe from that kid. No offense to him, but that's just how it is. And I honestly was glad when he was gone, because I thought he was doing a horrible job with Carl, and he made Carl unlikable to me.
He was I agree, because I hated and again, it's not the kid's fault, but I couldn't stand that.
No, it was his only acting job ever. Yeah. They picked him up when he was 9 years old, and here you go.
So I couldn't knock him on it, but I agree. He was not a good actor. He did annoy me in the show, but it was maybe it's just me not being able to separate the two, but being such a pivotal part of the show. And granted, I agree. The girl that plays Judith, 100 times better, better. Much, much better. But it just doesn't carry the same.
It doesn't carry the same way because it's not Carl.
It's not Carl.
It's not the character that we've seen grow up on the show. I mean, she essentially went from a baby that we saw off and on throughout the seasons to, here's the time jump, and now she's just this character that just is what she is, and we've seen no character growth with her because they haven't written any character growth.
I would have just rather they honestly brought in a new actor, and granted, it would have been weird for a little bit, but granted, after a season or two, get someone that can actually act. It would have been completely fine. No one would, because he died in what, back in season 7 or 8 or whatever.
It was right at the end of the Saviors. I can't remember.
Carl
8, yeah.
So it was 8,
and he was fine for the role up until around the time they got to Alexandria, and they started putting more on him as a character.
He was so bad in acting, and that was, in my opinion, it's unexcusable because they could have got coaches. They could have trained him. They could have got this kid. He had an ability. He just didn't have. He had
no training, and they didn't appear to train him in any way.
Yeah.
So it's just one day it's you've been the kid on the show that occasionally gets a line or two here. You're mostly just referred to by our main character more than anything else, or you're just there next to him on screen. Now all of a sudden, let's start giving you some storylines where now all of a sudden Carl's got balls and he's going to go and try and kill Negan and do all this stuff. And it's it was just not good.
Big,
it was not good.
Speeches and stuff.
I mean, I said, up until they get to Alexandria, the kid did fine for what they were giving him.
Yeah.
Right. And then they get to Alexandria and he starts getting more to do.
But you can tell though, Judith has been polished. Judith has been trained. Judith knows how to speak lines and deliver lines with some sort of talent, and the kid doesn't. He got lucky to be in a pilot and got kept on. I'm not trying to be mean to the kid. It's just they should have given him resources.
They should have. They had the means. Most popular show on television for a very long time.
Yeah.
For years and years.
Or his parents. or someone should have gone up and said, "Listen, you gotta get you're not 8 anymore. We need you to have some depth, kid. So we're gonna send you away to summer camp. Like, go to summer camp acting school and learn a little bit." That wasn't happening, and it would be no different than if he was an athlete, right? Would you not train? So it's inexcusable in my opinion.
Well, they could have him go on a mission or something other and be gone for a while, do the training, come back.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like they filmed 52 weeks out of the year. So, send the kid away for summer camp.
Or like you mentioned before, it's like recast them. It's like they're going to recast The Witcher and the main character, they can recast Coral.
Yeah. If it doesn't work, pay the kid a bunch of money.
And I always like how Andrew Lincoln pronounced it Coral.
Yeah.
Coral.
Okay, so top 10 episodes.
Well, I got one to add to that, and it's not what you would consider a traditional character, but I love
T-Dog.
Well, no, it's honestly, it's Shiva. I think if they would have kept Shiva, I don't think the threat of the enemies would have been as prevalent because they would take a step back because they had a fucking tiger.
Yeah, the CGI budget. The CGI budget couldn't handle Shiva.
Yeah,
I know, but
I get it. It was cool. It was a comical thing.
Look, she made for there was some great moments when she was on the show. Don't get me wrong. And it would have been cool if they could kept the tiger around. I'm 100% down with that. If the tiger would still be around, that'd be pretty cool because I always liked the tiger. But I understood why they took her off because every time she was on screen, they doubled the fucking budget for that episode. So
I honestly thought he was going to say someone out of left corner, whatever Beth's friend was from that hospital that got killed in that episode. Just random.
Everybody hates Chris.
Talk about another storyline that really
so dumb
didn't go anywhere. The whole Beth Daryl thing.
Nope.
The only payoff in that was when Rick went ham on them and chased that dude down and hit him with a police car. He was handcuffed and broke his back. And then he's like, "You're horrible." He's like, "Can't go back, Bob," and shot the dude in the head.
Yeah,
that was almost worth all the horrible Beth stuff because Rick chased the guy down that was running in handcuffs and killed him.
Yeah,
and the burnt walkers that had been hit by napalm. Those were
was cool.
The napalm walkers that were all toasted up. So, and a couple of it was kind of neat. I mean, but yeah.
Well, you can also do a butterfly effect too. Like the very first when Rick rides the horse to the city, if he doesn't get trapped and the horse gets killed, it could change the entire dynamic show. He wouldn't meet the original core group.
Yeah. Top 10.
Go for your top 10. I want to hear your top 10 episodes.
It's not in a real specific order, but it's kind of. So, I'll just run through top 10. Okay. So, number 10, Here's Not Here. That's the Morgan solo episode where he gets trained. I love that.
That's a good. Yeah, I like that episode a lot.
Morgan's all messed up. He spends time with the goat dude.
The cheese maker.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. I liked it. It showed me where Morgan was, and I did like that guy's story and was sad when he died. Because I was a big fan of his
character.
What was his real name? Something like John Carroll or something like that?
I can't remember, but the whole reason for building the bars was to hurt the guy who hurt his family. That was awesome. In-depth story writing, good story. I liked it was a one-off. Okay, next is number 9, which is Here's Negan. I could have watched 6 episodes of Here's Negan.
Yes.
That's how good it should have been.
That was the only good episode in the last 2 years.
Arguably, yes. And they should have, when COVID hit, they should have stopped everything and just did a Negan season. And I'm telling you, people would have loved it because
they did 6 episodes of that little filler season, whatever the fuck it was that add-on, and 5 episodes fucking sucked. Yeah. And then there was one glorious episode with Negan, and it's like, what were you doing? Clearly you knew how to make good shit.
Yeah.
And so it's more unforgivable when they show you how good it can be and what they can do, and then they just spend the rest of the time not giving it to you.
And everything was so tired. I really didn't care about the rest of the group at that point because Rick had gone. So take a break from everybody. Let me not have everybody else and do a Negan season. There's a bunch. The whole Negan thing could have been flushed out way better. So, anyways,
dude, can you imagine getting a full 6 episodes going from right before the outbreak up until he runs into Rick? Like doing 6 episodes going through his character story arc.
Yeah,
like him taking over
the first episode can stay exactly the same as that one was.
Yeah,
and then you do 5 more to where literally, like, what I want to see is the end of the 6th episode is him walking out of the RV with Lucille.
Yeah,
that's where that 6 episode story arc should have ended.
And go like the opposite, where like he's starting to hear about Rick, and like Tony and the guys on the bikes get killed. Like, lead that up on that end. You know what? I wouldn't even care about the New York story. We should be getting that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
And and like as he has hinted at multiple times in the last few seasons, show how like he was doing that because they were killing his people. And where, you know, when he confronted them about where did Aaron get that baby from, you know, and all that shit, and be like, you showed up and started killing my people.
Yep.
And you may not like how I did things, and I was an asshole, and I was this, and I was that, and I'm not saying I was a good guy, but like
I kept people alive.
I kept people alive. I gave a shit about them, you know, and all that stuff, and show the other side of that.
Okay.
So
next episode. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when they took out that fucking road crew with Daryl with the RPG, that was just fucking gnarly. They should have done more similar to that with some of the attacks and everything, because like we said, some of the fucking episodes were just fucking horrible. We needed more excitement.
All right, so I would agree with you, Corey. The next one is The Same Boat. This is when Carol and Maggie are held prisoner by Negan's little enforcer ladies.
Okay, the redhead.
I like that. That was a good episode, kind of offshoot, but it always stands out to me because Rick kills a bunch of people. He thinks he kills Negan in that episode with the guy who's dressed like Negan from the comics. That was a cool throwback. So that was fun.
Negan shithead.
Yeah, and so that was a good episode. But the next one I like is Guts, which is episode 2 of The Walking Dead. We get to meet Glenn. We see the rooftop. It's a fun episode where Rick and Glenn are in the department store. They leave Merle on top. That was a super fun episode. Some of the panel with the comic book. So definitely one of my favorite episodes. I rewatch the first and second one pretty frequently. Those are 2 great episodes. So Guts is my number 7 or 6, or 7, and then Wrath is my next one. Do you remember Wrath?
Remind me, I'm not.
Wrath is episode 16 of season 8. So when they fight the saviors, cut Negan's throat. That was a really good episode. Eugene's trickery with the bullet.
Yeah.
I really liked that episode. Rick gives his speech. They go to fight him. That's a pretty epic episode. I wish, in all honesty, I think they should have just killed Negan. Would have been better at times. There's a part to me that just say you should have just killed him. But then when I found out Rick was leaving, it was better. So like that. Next one is TS-19. I really like the ending of season 1. Dr. Jenner.
Yeah.
The whole speech, finding out, trying to escape, that's not in the comics. They kind of spun that off, but it was so good. The way he talks, I thought that he told Rick that Lori was pregnant. For years I had thought that when what he had whispered to Rick, but then soon found out what it really was. So, I like that. And the next I have for number 4 is Beside the Dying Fire. That is when the farm falls in season 2, the last episode.
Great episode. Yeah.
Oh, I love that because season 2 was kind of rough at times.
It felt, and I think part of the problem with season 2 was it was on the heels of a very, very tight, very exciting 6-episode first season.
Yes.
And we've then gone from 6 to what was it, 14?
14.
I think.
Yeah.
And so we've more than doubled the episodes, and honestly, less happened in season 2. Less progression happened in season 2 than season 1. So, yeah, it felt very like, it felt slow. It felt slow compared to the first season.
But there was so much, like, I liked when Otis and Shane went to go get the medical supplies. I like when Rick and Glenn and Herschel encountered Tony and Eric, where those guys were the bar were. So it was great, but then the ending of that episode where like Michonne comes in, the farm falls, Jimmy gets killed, a lot of action.
Herschel's using a shotgun.
Yeah, we got our first horde. But no, our first horde was in the beginning of season 2, but we got a pretty devastating horde in that, which was fun. So that one. So my next one is A, and that is the ending of season 4 when Rick bites the throat out. Everybody shows up at Terminus.
One of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole thing of that culmination. Matt and I have talked, and all of the guys have talked about how much we love the end of second part of season 4. It's the best part of Walking Dead. This was top Walking Dead, which leads me into the next episode, which is No Sanctuary, which is the escape from Terminus. The whole Terminus thing was awesome, very scary. Didn't know who was going to survive, but man, that's like prime Walking Dead. Carol saves him. Daryl's beating people with a pipe and a butcher knife. Rick steals an AK and shoots like 10 dudes. It doesn't get any cooler. I love that part. So that, which leads me to the best episode, which is Days Gone By, which is episode 1. It doesn't get any better. I love the first episode. It's comic by comic. The song, I remember sitting at my kitchen table in 2010 in the summer and seeing the Comic-Con preview for Walking Dead, and it pretty much showed you the first 5 or 6 minutes of Days Gone By. And I had read the comic in 2006 and 7 and 8 when it first came out, and I was a fan. Really liked the comics. And so when I saw the preview, it just blew me away.
Who's got music playing? Music. It's a jam.
Who's playing music?
What?
Somebody's playing music.
Like a cartoon music or something in the background.
So anyways, Days Gone By, number 1 episode. First episode of The Walking Dead is the best for me. So that's my top 10.
Okay. I'd say if I had to pick, episodes off the top of my head, you hit probably most of them.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be controversial. I still really like the episode when Rick leaves.
Oh yeah, I should.
That's a great episode.
I really like that episode. I think
I don't like the fact that Rick left, but that episode is a good episode.
I think that episode was one of the best episodes of Walking Dead. And it was a great episode as far as I'm concerned. So
I would also throw in contention. I think what impacted me episode-wise was the episode when Rick goes back to whatever his hometown is and he runs into Crazy Morgan. Like that was a fun episode for me.
Clear. That's clear.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
The dead faces. Yeah, I think, but the end.
One of my favorites, Duke, you covered it, was the one where fucking Rick just goes ham on that one guy. You'd think he's gonna lose, but then he stands up, hugs him, and bites his fucking throat out.
Oh yeah,
that was just fucking gnarly. That was probably one of the best scenes in the entire series so far, in my opinion.
Well, and it was so creepy because that guy was gonna like he was wanting to hurt Carl.
Mm-hmm.
The guys were beating the crap out of Daryl. The guy had the gun on Michonne, and you're like, well, how are they gonna get out of this? And Rick just bites his neck, and I guess it was chicken. They used cooked chicken for him to bite and like with fake blood. And knowing that, every time I see it, I just laugh because it's so intense. The guy said, "What you gonna do now, son?" He's like, "I'm gonna show you, homie. I'm gonna bite your neck out."
I mean, it's a solid tactic.
Yeah. Something that's unexpected.
Yep. All right, I got to get to something here real quick. Hold on a second. Steven dropped in a super chat like 30 minutes ago, and I kept meaning to get to, but we were on a roll here, so I didn't.
Oops.
I know it's my fault. I saw it, and I was just like, but we were on a roll, and I kept thinking, okay, the conversation will break at some point, and I'll address it. And I just didn't. It's my fault. Sorry, Steven. But Steven dropped in one, says Darth Vader versus Thor. Because I know the audience loves those little verses and things.
MCU Thor or comic book Thor?
I don't know. He didn't specify. But I'm saying either Thor would whoop the shit out of fucking Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I mean, Thor has diversity.
They did make him a dumbass, and the farther the MCU went, the more they made him a dumbass.
Yeah, he's bro Thor, but he's still redonkulously powerful. So,
and all he has to do is hit Darth Vader with like a bolt of electricity, and his suit's got a short circuit, and he can't breathe.
Yeah, and Vader can't do force lightning, and like that would even work on the god of thunder and lightning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, Thor all the way.
Yeah, I like Darth Vader, and there's been many times I have said, as many people know, there's been many times that I've said there's a lot of fights Darth Vader would win against other like maybe MCU or DCU superheroes because he's pretty fucking powerful. But no, not Thor. And then I still maintain that Magneto would whoop the shit out of Darth Vader. I know some people don't like to hear that. Magneto would turn Darth Vader into 100%. A puddle. He would 100%. Just.
There's not even a contest.
Yes. I've said that before, and people get all upset about it. No, sorry. Magneto would destroy Darth Vader with like a flick of his pinky. There's no question about that. Yep. So, sorry to those Darth Vader. I love Darth Vader too, okay? Anakin Skywalker is tied for my favorite Star Wars character ever with Han Solo. Those are the two, in my opinion, two best characters from Star Wars in any Star Wars ever, end of story. And so I love me some Darth Vader, okay? But no. Sorry. He's very powerful in his universe.
Magneto's an Omega level mutant who can actually, like, if he needed to, he can draw in power from the magnetic field of the Earth to get more powerful.
Yeah. Duke, I wanted to show you something here real quick. You're awake still, right?
Baby, I'm awake all night.
What about Magneto and Thanos?
With or without the Infinity Gauntlet? Without the Infinity Gauntlet, I think Magneto would whoop the shit out of Thanos.
Let's say with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Well, then nobody can. So I mean, he's doesn't matter. So I just wanted you to listen to something, kind of a little earwig in your ear. And it's for everybody. It's not just for Duke. Just want to put something out there.
What you got?
I think everybody could use a bit of this, and I want you to go to bed tonight cursing my name.
Gosh.
For this. Okay? So here we go.
Oh Lord.
We're on easy street, and it feels so sweet, 'cause the world is but a treat, and you're on easy street, and we're breaking out the good champagne.
Okay, I can only play so much of that.
Okay, I love that. Thank you for playing that for me. That made me laugh.
To this day, that's still my wake-up alarm all these years later.
Okay.
I love that song.
Okay.
I love that song, but goddamn, was there a period of time where you could not get away from that motherfucker?
Okay, so one of my favorite scenes is when, so Daryl gets tortured for like 3 episodes. They beat him, they cover him in like urine, he's getting blood and guts, they put him in that little cage, and he still says, "I'm Daryl," and he never fades. And then Eugene gets brought over, and he asks him, he like walks up to him, and he's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm Negan, 100% Negan. I love Negan. I love Negan so much." And we all want to think we're Daryl, right?
Yes.
But in all reality, we are all Eugene, because none of us are gonna hold out like that, man. We're all gonna be Eugene and want pickles and video games and chips. So I'm Negan. I'm 100% Negan. I love it. Good stuff. I still like Eugene. He's actually kind of, I mean, in the last little bit, he's come around.
Eugene, because I read the comics, and so I know he's supposed to be this kind of off character or whatever. I know some people are really annoyed with how he's a weirdo. He is weird. He's a weird dude. The only thing I don't understand is how in the fuck he thinks that rat tail looks good, and nobody's fucking told him to cut his motherfucking hair.
Yeah.
What the shit?
Yeah.
What? Cut your fucking hair, dude. That looks stupid. Anyway.
Yeah, but from when Eugene and Gabriel first appeared on the show, they were just like little bitch characters where you wanted something, either get their ass beat or whatever. But they've actually fucking grown as a character, especially Gabriel.
Yeah. But yeah.
I just like how far they've come.
I just find that annoying. Another super chat here from Josh says, but somehow Magneto loses to a guy with metal bone. Not really. Not in the comics.
No, Magneto sucked the adamantium out of Wolverine's body.
Yeah. No, I know they did some bullshit in the movies, or whatever, but did he ever really defeat Magneto in the movies? I don't think so.
Even in
no,
X-Men
he acted
3,
more like a distraction for other people.
So Magneto's never really thought of Wolverine as a threat. So actually quite the opposite, because he's the one he can legitimately control,
Well, same with Colossus. He can control Colossus.
Yeah. So
at one point he became so powerful he could actually freeze people by the iron in their blood.
Yep. I do like that scene. I do like the scene from the first movie.
Yep.
When Mystique injects that prison guard with iron. And that's a great scene. I love that.
There are parts of that whole trilogy that is really good.
Dark.
It holds up.
Oh, dude. See, here's the thing about the X-Men movies. So they're out of all the Fox franchise X-Men movies that have come out, half of them are good and half of them suck. Okay? And that's just kind of how it is. Overall, I've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of them. I really do like them. But like the first X-Men, while I will not go back and looking at it with everything we've gotten since then, it's not the greatest movie. It's good for when it came out in what was it, 2000?
2000 product of its time.
It's really good because we had never gotten a big budget superhero movie like that wasn't Batman or Superman.
Yeah.
Right. And it was really good for then, but it's not the greatest movie. Right. But still, I love that movie. X-Men 2 is fucking amazing. Holds up to this day. That movie is great. The only thing holding that movie back was the fact that it was PG-13. Because there are scenes like when Wolverine goes berserk in the mansion, when all those government dudes show up, that could have been so much better had that movie been rated R.
Yep.
But that movie's great through and through. I love that movie from beginning to end. I mean, it's a lot of adaptive storytelling from multiple different storylines in the comics, but I still thought it was done well for a movie. X-Men 3 fucking sucks. It's horrible. I've watched that movie maybe twice all the way through, and not at all in the last more than a decade. That movie's fucking horrible.
And they put a stupid internet meme in the movie.
Oh God, yeah, it's a horrible fucking movie. Nobody should ever watch that movie.
I will say that X-Men 2000 did so well because the only recent superhero movie before that was Batman and Robin.
True. I mean, really, what good movies? If it wasn't Batman, there were no big superhero movies that had come out that I thought were any good. I don't like the original Superman movies from the late 70s and 80s. I don't think they're good movies. And then the last Batman movie was fucking horrible. And the only other thing we got at the movies was Blade. Yeah. Blade was fucking great, but it was not a big budget movie.
Dale Dixon.
Same thing with Spawn.
Yeah, I love Spawn. I hear people trash the movie. I'm like, you can go fuck yourself. That movie was great.
Spawn was fucking awesome.
The cool
that movie,
did make for a serious comic book movie, and people actually really liked it.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Spawn from the moment of Image Comics inception. I read every fucking issue of that comic up until sometime in the mid-90s, maybe somewhere around the time the movie came out. I can't remember. It was one of the few comics that I continued reading after I stopped collecting comics back in around the time I turned 16, 17, something like that, and bought a car and decided I would rather go get laid than read comic books. It was one of the few comics I kept reading. In fact, it was everything that I read from that point on was all Image Comics. Wetworks occasionally would drop a new issue once every year or so because that fucking comic came out so sparsely. But Spawn and Savage Dragon were the two comics that I continued to read even after I basically stopped reading comics in the 90s. But that movie came out and I fucking loved it. I thought it was wonderfully done, a great representation. I thought, considering it did not have a huge budget, they did an amazing job. I know most of the money was spent on the CGI cape, but for 1996, the CGI was on point. Like, it looked really good. Looked a hell of a lot better than anything else I had seen at that point. And even going back and watching it, while it is obviously noticeably older CGI, it still is more than good enough to carry the story. I think that's a great movie, hugely underrated comic book movie. So
I loved fucking John Leguizamo as that fat clown.
He was the perfect casting as Violator. He really was. Awesome. Yes. He was great. He did a fantastic. Everybody in that movie. I mean, even I'm blanking on his name. What the fuck's his name? Anyway, the guy that played Jason Wynn. Why am I blanking on this famous actor?
The Jaleel White guy?
No. The guy that played Jason Wynn, the bad guy. What the fuck is his name?
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen. Thank you. Blanked on a famous person's name. Martin Sheen was the perfect choice for Jason Wynn. Thought he did fantastic. Yep. I even like, and I don't remember the actress's name. That was his, and I can't. I'm blanking. Apparently, I'm getting fucking Alzheimer's early or some shit because I cannot remember the character's name. But his right hand man, quote unquote, the chick, was perfect casting from the comics, and I really like that actress because I became a huge fan of hers after watching Return of the Living Dead Part 3, which if you've never seen that is a great movie to watch when you were about 12 to 13 years old and you're watching a zombie movie because you love zombies, but like honestly, half the movie is this really, really hot chick in all leather slowly turning into a zombie, but like never turning into a zombie enough to not still be ridiculously fucking hot in ripped up leather clothes. Very life-changing for a young 12 to 13-year-old Matt. I'm just saying, it's like Species.
I remember that movie.
That movie did many wonderful things for me at the age of 12 or 13 or whenever I saw it. And I will always thank that movie for being that good and her for playing that role so perfectly. I think her name's Melinda Clark as I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think that's what her name is. I may be wrong. But anyway, great movie. Love Spawn 1996. Fantastic movie. I always give it 2 thumbs up. I think that movie holds up for me. So,
and Duke brought up Species with Natasha Hendricks in it.
Fuck you. You're just trying to get me in trouble with my wife again, like y'all did the other night. But
that whatever. Fucking hot tub scene, though. Come on, man. Come on.
No, Species actually was a really good movie. The first one, I know they did some sequels that I remember not liking, but I honestly haven't watched them in so long that I don't remember why I didn't like them. But the first one's actually really good. I thought they did a great job. I also like H.R. Giger, like his art style. I've watched documentaries and stuff on him and read like interviews with him and stuff because I loved Aliens as a kid. And was always thought his artwork was just fucking insane. And that, by the way, that dude is fucked up.
Was Species done by Fox?
Was what?
What movie company did Species?
I don't remember.
I was thinking if it was owned by Fox, then Disney has it, and Disney has Aliens, so they could actually do a Species Aliens crossover.
That would be cool if the aliens from Species were really like this kind of evolved fucking offshoot cousin of the Xenomorphs, which is why they look somewhat similar.
Yeah.
You know? That would be kind of cool.
Do you think we'll get a remake of the Spawn anytime soon?
They've been talking about a remake with Spawn for like 6 years now that's supposed to be starring Jamie Foxx. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's going on with it. Every so often, like I know there was Todd McFarlane put out something was it last month, I think, saying, "Oh, new updates about the Spawn movie coming," and then like the next day he's like, "Oh, sorry, have to cancel, you know, but there will be more updates coming," and then he never fucking said anything. So I don't know, you know, there was rumors that he was going to do an update that was going to have to do with Spawn being more of like a ghost type figure or something, and this was like from Todd McFarlane. And I'm like, are you fucking stupid? What the hell are you talking about? Why would you change who Spawn is? No. You just need to do a comic book adaptation of that fucking character. Don't be changing shit and changing the character into, because they're like, oh, we're going to make him more like a ghostly phantom type character. No. And he's not really going to be the main character in the movie. No. He's going to be like a background character that everybody talks about. And I'm like, no, why would you do that? You wrote the freaking character. Like, you created the character. Why would you do that to him? Well, because I think it'd make for a good movie. No, I don't give a shit. No. Obviously, we need to stop paying you to think and just regurgitate shit you've already done. Like, I don't give a fuck. Just take the script from the first movie and do it better or something, because I'd rather see that.
Make sure it's rated R so we could have you know, some real awesome fucking scenes.
Exactly. So, anyway. But, Duke, are you still awake?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking. I have to check in on you every so often.
I'm just waiting for G.I. Joe.
Well, really?
Yeah, I thought you were okay. I'm trying. I'm being patient. My mom wouldn't let me watch Spawn. Okay, I was not allowed to have anything Spawn because it was the Satan thing, and I get it. So,
yeah. All right. No, well, then I've got something for you, Duke.
What you got?
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained special mission force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. G.I. Joe. Fighting for freedom wherever there's trouble, we're relentless.
Yes,
man.
Yes,
that make you want to join the Marine Corps, baby.
God damn it!
I love that intro.
That shit pumped me up so much when I was a kid.
Yeah, the beginning was good when Cobra's like when they're talking about who will rule the sky, Cobra.
Yeah, that intro when they redid the intro for the movie and made it much longer and added more lyrics and all that shit. The intro to the movie is fucking amazing. And like I love that movie. That movie holds up to this day for me. I still go back and watch that movie like once a year.
To this day.
Love that damn movie.
Yeah. It's super dark. The Nemesis Enforcer is creepy. Like all of it. It's it's really a good movie. The intro when they're giving the Cobra the business and punching him and beating him up. I love it, man. Good stuff.
Man, that whole scene towards the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is for Duke.
Yeah.
This is for me.
Yeah.
And this is for the US of A. Like that's fucking dude.
Yeah.
I love that fucking shit. I fucking love that shit.
It kind of showed that Slaughter from the G.I. Joe universe was superhuman because Nemesis Enforcer could pick up cars and throw them.
Yeah, so but I bought it like a motherfucker to this day. I buy it. Sergeant Slaughter is the strongest being in the world.
Yeah,
period.
He grabs his face. He's like, "You make me sick." And he throws him into the abyss. Like the whole scene is like everybody's joining in. Their guns stop working. So like Roadblock starts bashing people with his gun.
Yeah, it breaks the fucking gun over the dude.
Yeah,
like. Dude, I love that fucking movie so much.
Yeah,
God damn.
That ending is all in all. And then the music that plays, there's like a I'll have to find it and I'll play it sometime, but it's it's like a march that plays. It's like da 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 da, and it just it gets you pumped up and going. And when they're trying to save Falcon and Jinx is grabbing onto Slaughter's belt and they're spinning around like, oh man, the business. The way that you were amped up as a kid will never be the same.
Well,
Dude, admit it. That's why you joined the Marines.
That is 100% why I joined the Marines. I thought it was going to be just like it. Finds out nothing like it.
Well, then you find out what a paramilitary organization actually is. It's not the military.
Yeah. So like, was it cool? We didn't have cool code names. They just called me shithead a lot. So like, I thought I was going to get like a cool code name. I was going to be like on the team.
All right.
Nope.
Here's what's gonna happen. Duke,
walking around like kicking a rock, like I thought he was gonna
Duke,
play Cobra.
I am going to make you a custom shithead GI Joe.
Oh god.
This is gonna happen. I'm gonna make a shithead Duke GI Joe figure for you.
Oh gosh.
And I'm gonna send it to you, and you can show your little children.
He started at his backstory is he started out in military sanitation.
Yeah.
Still better than fucking Toll Booth. Anybody remember Toll Booth?
Yeah.
The dude who looked like a construction worker who was just for some reason there.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck? Toll Booth?
Nobody
He's wearing the orange construction site hat and shit with his orange vest.
He wasn't
looking like he should be waving cones around.
Yeah, like take off their like scuba gear and stuff, and they're in the base.
Yeah. Fucking hell.
No,
anyway. G.I. Joe was awesome. It is still awesome to this day.
Yeah.
I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan. I was a huge G.I. Joe fan as a kid. I don't think there was another toy line in the 80s that offered just numbers wise. There was no other toy line in the 80s that had as many characters, as many play sets, as many accessories, as many vehicles. And that stretched. So, I mean, we've kind of always had, there's been a couple of dead spots in the last 40 years, but most of the last 40 years, there's always been something G.I. Joe for kids to go pick up on the fucking toy aisle in some way, shape, or form.
Collector, I've avoided getting into vintage G.I. Joe because it's a worm. It's a rabbit hole you do not want to
don't think there's so few fucking people that could actually, there's so much of it. It would be a lifelong achievement to try and fucking get one of everything. It would take forever. Look, I still have G.I. Joes. I'm not some completionist. I'm not trying to finish stuff. I do not have a large collection of them, but I pick stuff up whenever I find it cheap or whatever. And so I've got a decent little small sub collection of my larger collection that is G.I. Joe. But
Classified, Hasbro are killing it with that line.
They're doing great. I'll be honest though, when it comes to Star Wars and G.I. Joe, I don't like their 6-inch stuff. And that's just me personally.
Yeah.
Because with that stuff, I want the 3 3/4. I want the little stuff from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to collect that stuff, that's the stuff I want. I want this. So most of what I have that Star Wars is all the small figures, and everything I have. Well, not everything. I've got a handful of G.I. Joe classifieds things that I've picked up, over the last couple of years. But I like the little shit that if I'm going to collect, because that's my childhood.
Yeah.
And unlike with Marvel, right? Like there was, up until Toy Biz in the 90s, but there was not really, we had Secret Wars, but I'll be honest, I didn't really give a shit about Secret Wars action figures, and there wasn't very many of them. It wasn't a big line. I know nowadays it's looked at very fondly, but in the 80s it was okay.
Yeah.
But when you had G.I. Joe and Star Wars and Ninja Turtles and Transformers and He-Man and all this other shit, like Secret Wars was almost a blip on the radar in the 80s.
Secret Wars came too little too late to try to compete with superpowers too.
Well, and it had only you gotta remember, superhero lines had 10 guys, but G.I. Joe has like a couple hundred.
Oh, dude, it's more than that.
And there's so much more G.I. Joe, and I didn't know there's a vast difference in price wise of G.I. Joe from the 80s to the 90s. So G.I. Joe stuff from the 80s is crazy expensive. Yeah. G.I. Joe from the early 90s, not sought after so much.
No, dude, basically anything after 1990-ish, and once the show had come out and gone and the movie had come and gone, and they were into that second wave where they were re-releasing a lot of old figures, but now for some reason neon colors and shit. Yep. And then you had the Sergeant Savage line and all that kind of stuff. Basically anything after that point all the way up until today with just very few exceptions, you can get really cheap. Like you can still buy figures brand new in the package for like 15 to 20 bucks from 30 years ago, from the early 90s. You know, and there's been multiple lines since then. I mean, I think a lot of the good lines came starting with the 25th anniversary line, which I think were cool because they basically took G.I. Joe figures and like just kind of modernized the articulation and the sculpts and made them look even cooler than they used to look. But yeah, but all those things you can get cheap as shit. So I know, Duke, you were talking about picking up like G.I. Joes for your kids and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm they're bringing back the O-ring figures too for collectors. Like,
yeah, they brought there's retro series figures out there that you can pick up that are just like you can get them at Walmart and shit.
That crossover Megatron, it turns into his tank. He comes with a retro style Baroness with a O-ring style construction.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. Like if you wanted to, as long as you're okay with not getting any of those original '80s figures, if you wanted to pick shit up for your kids, there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff you can get really cheap that maybe it's new, maybe it's 10, 20, 30 years old, but it doesn't cost a lot of money. But there's tons of it out there.
As cool as Slaughter is with his Triple T, you can usually pick those up pretty cheap, especially if it's missing his his stick.
Yeah.
That's the most pricey piece of that set.
Because that was the first thing that everybody lost or broke off or whatever. Yeah, so
his little what do you call that stick in wrestling?
Oh, I don't remember. I know what you're talking about, man. I don't remember what it was called.
His swagger stick.
That's it. The swagger stick.
Yeah, they outlawed him in the Marine Corps in like 1980 because they were beating recruits with them.
Yeah, they're
that's
so
the
first thing gets lost from that set, but you can usually pick up that Triple T and a vintage Slaughter fairly decent price.
Mm-hmm.
I got one sitting on my shelf over here. I picked a toy show a couple years back. I made some custom decals for it to restore it, clean it up.
All right, we're going to keep talking about G.I. Joe. I got to get these two super chats here. Dom's Vibrating Bicep says, how do you think Black Knight will be placed in the MCU? Oh, God. I don't know, because I think Eternals was such a letdown for the studio, and they did not expect it to do as poorly as it did. And so I don't know what the future is for any of the characters that showed up in that movie, because like it was the first, honestly, like, look, Thor Dark World gets a lot of shit, right? But it made a lot of fucking money.
Yep.
Eternals did not make a lot of fucking money. And not only that, but it gets way more shit than Thor Dark World ever did.
Oh, it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, it is without a doubt the worst movie they've released, as far as, and I'm not even just talking about my personal opinion. I'm just talking about from the studio's perspective. It's the worst movie they've released. It made them the least amount of money. It is the one that is the most disliked. It got the worst ratings.
And they've ignored it too in the MCU so far.
Yeah. So I don't know what they're going to do with any of those characters, which sucks because I really do like Black Knight. I think he's a great character. And that in credit scene where we got teased Black Knight and Blade and all that stuff, like I was looking forward to that, and I thought that's the best part of the movie. But I don't know that they're going to do anything with Black Knight or any of the I mean, I think they will to some extent do something with the Eternals and some of these characters, but like I don't think we're seeing a big Eternal sequel anytime soon or anything like that. I think if we see these characters again, it's going to be in other movies where other characters are the main cast, and these characters are just going to come in to kind of further a specific storyline. I do think they're going to continue storylines with the Celestials. I think that's just going to, because that's too much a part of the Marvel universe. And I don't think anybody thinks that adding the Celestials to that movie was what was wrong with that movie, because it wasn't. So I think you can still use the Celestials, and nobody's going to think twice about it. But I don't foresee them getting another movie.
Yeah, I don't see them keeping the part of a Celestial hanging out the Earth, emerging out of the Earth, because they have not addressed that. That'd be like, seems like that would be something like, hey, there's a giant body parts hanging out of the side of the Earth.
Yeah. Now. We got another super chat here. Go Shadow says, could they make G.I. Joe today? I don't know.
No, it's okay. So can I? I'll answer.
Yeah, go.
No, it was the perfect time because you had the 70s were over, so the anti-war movement had made its way through. You had a resurgence of love and appreciation for the country, sparked by a love and appreciation of toys. Star Wars made the way. Let's make that real clear.
Oh yeah,
on the size and scale. So G.I. Joe was the 12-inch, right? But then Star Wars did the smaller version, the 3 3/4, and then they paved the way for G.I. Joe to come in. So then you had this perfect plethora of positive pro-American thought. We're winning the Cold War, right? We're on the tail end of the Cold War. And so you got all these kids that are like want to play all-American soldier. And it's encouraged by parents a little bit more than it would have been in the prior decade.
Yeah.
So all that combined together created like the perfect scope. Then you have a kinship to the Saturday morning, but then every morning cartoon, because G.I. Joe came on every morning, not just Saturday morning. So G.I. Joe came on right before the bus came to get you. So if you were lucky, you got to finish G.I. Joe, ran out the door to the credits, blaring as loud as you can, so you could hear it at the bus stop as the credits were playing through the window. I think no. I don't think it works today. Not even close. The way that people are anti-war, anti-gun, that would have never flew.
Well, they tried it a few years ago with that really terrible series.
With
the bad art, and the G.I. Joe was basically the core teams. They were basically the A-team, falsely accused of the crime they didn't commit, and they were trying to clear their name, type thing.
Yeah, well, now they're anti-terror and all that, like goofiness. Like, no, it's
like you can't get no worse than like the 90s, like when
G.I. Joe Extreme. God damn, that was horrible.
Actually, we're just as bad as when Sumbo lost the license for. They switched from Sumbo to what was the other company, Dick or something.
Yeah,
DIC. Yeah, and they had the G.I. Joe of the 90s. Yeah,
it was terrible. That's like
I laughed every time in the 80s and 90s when that fucking logo came up and that little kid goes Dick, and I'm like, every fucking time.
You can't even hardly find like on YouTube those episodes of the Dick cartoon. Tubi actually has the Real American Hero. You can watch it, no problem. But they do not have the Dick series.
Oh, dude, I love the G.I. Joe channel on YouTube that just does nothing but plays G.I. Joe episodes on repeat over and over and over again live.
Tubi has the first like 90 episodes if you ever want to watch them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I would agree. The movie stands up. I watched a good little documentary on the movie, and like Duke was supposed to die, and he didn't die because Optimus Prime died, and all the kids freaked out, went crazy. So, I mean, I did all that.
The Transformers went super dark.
Yeah. We were just talking about the Transformers the other night. So, I, as much as any kid, I guess, liked Transformers, but it was never really my thing. I don't know why. I think it was just because, and I'm talking as far as toys go. I think it was just because it was much easier to identify with, a Star Wars character or a G.I. Joe character than it was a fucking robot. So
they were more expensive. I remember that.
They were more expensive and less identifiable to, fucking 10-year-old me or whatever. But I've gone back and we were talking about this the other night. I've gone back and those first 3 seasons of Transformers before the movie came out are just not good. Like, they're really not good. They are some of the worst cartoon storytelling from the 80s. But the movie I loved the movie. Loved the fucking movie because it was nice. It was dark. It was different. And I think part of that came from, like, I had already, by the time the Transformers movie came out, I had already been a huge fan of Robotech as a kid. And so I was used to more adult storytelling and darker storytelling. If you've ever watched Robotech, like Like, fuck, dude. It's just tragedy after tragedy, that entire series. But I will say the 2 seasons that came after the movie were way better than the first 3 seasons before the movie, because they kind of really turned into that dark nature and started doing storytelling that I think appealed to maybe older kids or something. It wasn't as much of a commercial anymore.
It was 2 seasons before the movie. You had seasons 1 and 2, the movie, then the 3rd season. Then
I thought it was 2 after the movie. Okay, well,
they consider a 4th season, but it was just like a 3-episode arc from like they call that season 4, but there's only like 3 episodes.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, after the movie, the show I actually consider to be a much better show. So,
it actually the season 3 started. There's a Korea animation studio. They have never done animation before until they did Transformers season 3.
Oh, okay.
And they were learning as they went.
I got to show this real quick because out there in the chat, G.I. Joel is one of the guys in the chat, and he's like, he had done a custom hiss tank. He dropped it in my Discord. So he was showing that he pimped out his tank in snow camo.
That's fucking cool.
Pretty
Nice.
fucking sweet, dude. That looks really good, man. That looks factory. That does not look like you
yeah.
customized something.
That looks nice. And
That
white
looks
is so hard to do over top of black.
Yeah, he did a damn good job.
I will agree.
How much are you selling those for? No.
Right?
He's like, fuck you, it's mine.
Oh, I just in one of the G.I. Joe collector groups the other day, I saw somebody's made 6-inch scale triple T tanks with working treads.
Oh, that's cool.
And he's selling them for like $150. It's like, and they look damn good. It's like,
Bam.
Nice. We got a super chat from Calhoun Republic, and he left something for you, Duke. He wanted you to see this. He said, my last chat info is for Duke. I can ask for him. But he put it in the chat. He said, let Duke know my brother went to Paris Island in like 2011. I believe he said they still had swagger sticks then. I can ask him later.
Yeah, they had. I was in 06, and they were gone then. But at the end of boot camp, they do some cool stuff. And one of the things they did is they brought a World War II vet in, and this guy was a drill instructor during World War II, he had gone to World War II, fought in the Pacific, and then became a drill instructor afterwards. And he had a swagger stick, and he was showing it to us and talked about how he used to beat recruits with it. And you would use it because you didn't want to touch the disgusting recruit. So you would like open their mouth with it, or like poke them, or like tell them to move their arm up or something. It was like a stick that you would poke. And he said, yeah, they outlawed him. He said whenever they did, but he's like, yeah, they ain't taking mine. And what are you going to do? This guy fought on Iwo Jima. Like, you can tell me to take this swagger stick. So yeah, they brought him in to, talk to us about what the Marine Corps was going to be like. And he told us about bayonet and Japanese guys. And I mean, this guy was crazy. Man. I mean, you're not only do you think, it's like meeting a Greek god is what it felt like.
Yeah.
So.
Sissy in the chat said, I had tons of G.I. Joe stuff, the Seawolf submarine, 6-wheel amphibious, the VTOL plane, 8-wheel mobile sport vehicle, 2 military Jeeps, and tons of gear and equipment. Man, they made so much cool shit, man.
Yeah, I had a submarine that you could put an Alka-Seltzer in, and it would like make the submarine float. Like that was the coolest thing, man.
I argue that G.I. Joe created the most sought-after toy in all of toy history.
Oh, yeah.
In the USS Flag.
Yeah.
Period. In the story, hands down. I didn't know a single person who actually owned one, but everybody I knew wanted one. Of course, nobody in the neighborhood I grew up in could afford one.
Or had the room for one, because it's an entire room.
It's like 4 feet long or some shit. Yeah. It's huge. It cost. I mean, I don't remember what the price was back in the 1980s, but whatever it was ridiculously expensive for the time.
I saw one once when I was in Vegas at like a toy store there, and it was thousands of dollars.
Yeah, we must have been at the same store, dude, because I saw the same thing.
It's in old Vegas.
Yeah, next to the Heart Attack Cafe or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've only ever seen one once in my entire life in person, and it was at a comic book convention back in the 90s. and somebody had one, and they only had it for display purposes. They were selling a bunch of comics and a bunch of toys, but they had and because I used to go to comic book conventions back then, and we would get tables and stuff. And I had a table at this comic book convention, so I knew the tables were $60 a piece. And he had gotten an entire table to do nothing but display the flag. It was one of the it was $60 for a 6-foot table, and he had like I think 3 tables total. One was all comics, one was all toys, and one was the USS flag.
Oh my!
And it
God.
was just there for display.
I mean that draws to your
7 feet 6 inches long.
7 fucking feet. Jesus
Bring
Christ.
up a picture and show it.
And almost 32 inches tall.
Yep.
Let's see.
And do you like? And at the time that we were all into this, it was a possibility for you to walk up to a garage sale and find like a whole like collection of GI Joes being sold for a fraction of the price. Like that's how I got most of my GI Joes.
Same.
Were from. So I'm 10 years younger than Matt. So like Matt's mom would come over because she knew that Matt didn't play with them anymore and would sell them to me and my family for like way lower price. And so most of mine were second generation, which I didn't care. I was just excited to have GI Joes. Yeah. So like at that time, my parents would buy them, or like we would get them at garage sales. And I like distinctly remember being at a garage sale and having to make the choice of the Cobra Dome versus I can't remember what it was called, but it was a big GI Joe like vehicle, and there were 2 rockets in the bed, and the rockets stood up and launched or something. But I wanted the tank because the good guys. I didn't really want the bad guy base. But I remember having to decide like which one I was gonna get for my parents. And good times, man. I would agree with you. There's nothing like a GI Joe toy.
There's plans you can actually get and build a wooden base for the flag.
Yeah, so I've seen those.
Undercarriage and stuff.
Yeah, and you can post because there's several YouTube videos. I don't know. I'm assuming because this was from years ago. This was like probably this is probably a 10-year-old video at this point. So I don't know if this is like the original person that posted it or just the first person that posted it on YouTube or whatever. But there's several videos out there. But I remember the first one I saw like a decade ago, and the dude had the substructure built up underneath this thing where he could park all the fucking hover tanks and shit underneath it, and so it looked like all the area that would be like under the water line of the carrier, and he had it filled up with all the different characters and shit and everything. It was fucking cool as shit looking. But yeah, this is I think the most sought after fucking toy to this day for man children like me who still collect toys because of growing up in the 80s. Like,
where the fuck would you put it though? Good God, that's massive.
It would have to just be like a coffee table in the middle of my room here. Like that's
no shit.
I don't know what else I would do. But here's the thing. I'll never own one because they cost thousands and thousands of dollars to get one that's complete.
Yeah, the only way I'm owning one is if I like win the lottery, or if I find like some little old lady who like had Billy's toys locked up in the basement for years. It's like, oh, I'm moving to the retirement home and they need to get rid of these. Like
it's like one of those memes. If I ever win the lottery, I'll tell no one, but there will be signs. That will be your sign. Is I'll have a fucking USS flag sitting behind me over here when I do shows. And you'll be like, did Matt win the lottery? Yes, I did. I'm not going to tell you I did, but I fucking did if I have the USS flag. Because that's one of the first things I'm going to go fucking buy is a complete USS flag.
The most badass looking flag I've ever seen was custom made. Somebody made a true 3¾ inch flag, which is 20-30 feet long in his basement.
Jesus.
I don't know what I would assume it's got to be in piece where you can connect it together to get it out of there if you ever move.
Gee, can you imagine? It'd be a cool project though.
Oh yeah,
look at that shit. Somebody's got one floating in a pool. Why not?
Fuck it. Cool. Yeah, right. What's the height of that?
I want to say it's like at least 2 feet tall with this piece right here.
31.
And that's
almost 32 inches tall.
Shit.
Damn, that's a big bitch.
Mm-hmm.
But badass though. I mean, fuck.
Can you imagine those spoiled little fuckers who actually got one of those for Christmas? Fuck you. Fuck you and your spoiled ass little bitch self.
Well, did you see that comment down there at the bottom by Protagonist?
What? Where? What?
Almost at the bottom of the chat by Protagonist. He said he had a neighbor when he was a kid that owned all the G.I. Joe toys. He destroyed pretty much all of them with fireworks. That spoiled little prick.
Fuck yeah. Fuck that kid. Fuck that kid. Fucking little asshole.
There was one kid when I was in school who actually had a flag.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at those kids. I'm fucking jealous of these fucking kids right here.
Yeah, no shit.
Fuck them. You know how much I wanted to do shit like this when I was a kid? God damn. Oh, well.
That fucking jet, dude, is bigger than his torso.
Yeah, look at that shit. I'm telling you, man, when it comes to the fucking toys, there was no better time. If you liked fucking action figures as a kid, like you were lucky if you were born and were a child in the 80s.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Duke. I hate to say that to you, but you got the leftovers though. Like,
hey, I mean, I was 87, so by the time I started playing early 90s, I'm getting the garage sale specials, and then I liked the neon stuff of the 90s. I mean, but that was what I grew up with, so it's kind of I mean, you have to.
I was that because I'm 10 years older than you, so I was born in '77. So by the time G.I. Joe came out in '82,
your perfect age.
I'm the perfect fucking age for that. Like it's on, man.
Yeah.
You know, I'd already grown up being surrounded by Star Wars since '78. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because I grew up with my mother loved sci-fi, so that was like the first. She would buy me fucking Star Wars toys all the fucking time. So I'm already used to 3 3/4 inch. I love the 3 3/4 inch figures. I love fucking, the whole, vehicles and play sets and shit like that. And then here comes fucking G.I. Joe. And it just outdoes everything. And I think continued to outdo everything throughout the entire 80s. In fact, I would say to this day, I don't think there's another line that has come out that has given us more variety in characters or given us more vehicles or play sets or accessories or anything than G.I. Joe. I think it is number one in that area ever.
Masters Universe did pretty good, but not like G.I. Joe.
No. And even like, you look at, even if you're just talking action figures, like Marvel Legends, there's a lot of figures out there, but fuck, half of them are ones we've already had, and we just get the same character in different costumes over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
G.I. Joe had, I don't even know, hundreds, maybe thousands of unique characters that came out, and
then you had your vehicles and everything else on top.
There's like nothing else compares to that. To this day, nothing else has been that prolific as far as just the amount of stuff it put out. So it's fucking crazy. So I don't know, man. I growing up in the 80s, growing up with G.I. Joe, I think was an awesome thing. I almost feel like I look at my kids today, right? And toys just are not as big of a deal to them.
No.
As they were to me, or even kids of the 90s, or even kids of the 2000s, because everything is all about electronics and video games or this kind of stuff. And I get it. I mean, look, there was a time when the fucking stick and the hoop were the greatest thing. And I'm sure those parents were going, my kids don't like stick and hoops anymore. Now they just want to play with their little toy cars made out of wood and shit like that. So I get it, right? Like, I don't feel like, I'm sure the kids don't think they're like missing out on anything. They're like, I fucking have an iPhone and a laptop and I've got an Xbox. So the fuck do I need toys for? But like, I don't know, man, just the amount of imagination you could put into that stuff. Like, I feel like on some level, like that was good for us to have that, where we weren't just getting told a fucking story. We were creating these stories in our heads in ways that kids today aren't doing.
It built creativity.
I know you weren't into the Transformers, but I was a big Transformers fan. Still am.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like you get like 3 toys in one. You get your robot, you get your alternate mode robot dinosaur creature, and a puzzle.
Yeah, but you get was so much better because they had and I thought the Cobras always had super cool vehicles and super cool weapons, and like
I think Cobra had better vehicles than Joe did. I think Cobra had the better vehicles, hands down.
Yeah, they had the A-10 Warthog, they had the SR-71 Blackbird for Cobra.
Yeah, they had all the cool shit. Out there in the chat,
like the F-14 Tomcat for the Joes.
Yeah,
and some choppers.
I wish I had all the toys that I had when I was a kid. Because see, I had a lot of this stuff growing up. I had a lot of GI Joe. One of the biggest things that I collected was Hot Wheels. I loved my little fucking Hot Wheels. I had tons of them, and I had Star Wars toys as well. And in '89, I want to say, I think it was '89. Our house burnt down, and I lost every fucking thing. When we went back in, all my Hot Wheels toys, because I had the fucking cases. Like I had this where you could put them in individually, one, and I had them in the top of my closet. I had probably 15 of those little cases, and they were all melted into one pile.
Oh shit!
I lost everything, and even one thing that I loved too as a kid, I had one of those My Buddy dolls. Remember them?
Yeah.
It was the Chucky doll.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I
lost. I didn't lose all my collection, but I lost. When I went to college, we had a house fire, and when I lost,
we'll be right back.
All my Hot Wheels from a child.
Mm-hmm. I even had all the Ghostbusters stuff. I had like the Ghostbusters backpack with the fucking phaser gun, the trap.
Yep.
Yeah, I lost a lot of my stuff back when I moved from Rhode Island to Pennsylvania because like we kind of had to move on a whim and we couldn't really bring a lot of stuff with us. And like I had decks of Pokemon cards and like Matchbox. I had things of Ninja Turtles and a ton of Star Wars toys. And like I look back, I'm like I could probably buy a house with like the toys I had back then.
Exactly.
In today's current market,
I sold most of my G1 collection for like about $20,000.
Jesus Christ.
G1 Transformers.
Yep. Out there in the chat, Sissy says, I had tons of G.I. Joe stuff and never heard of the USS Flag till today. Oh, dude, it was... Yeah. I mean, it was epic. It was epic. It was the thing that was like...
Well, it's what you... when you got the Sears Wish book, that's one of the things you stared at.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, I struggle because like, I kind of always wanted to share this like love for GI Joes with my kids, and like I don't know, man. We're into the little plastic green army dudes. Like he's into that, right? And that's super fun, and we're having fun. But like, I don't know, are we gonna do this whole thing with the GI Joes? Is it gonna be a thing he likes? As a kid, that was so much fun to run into the store and to see this kind of stuff and. The collecting of it, of the aspect, but that's gone today, man.
Remember when Toys R Us and KB Toys and for I don't know about y'all, but we had Children's Palace down here, and like it was just like Christmas every day. Like if you could talk your parents into taking you down there, even just to get one thing, because it was just as enjoyable to walk up all the aisles and look at everything before you picked the one thing you were going to get that day.
Yeah,
you know. Like it was fucking great.
In the day, Heels was like one of the best places to go. They had one of the biggest toy aisles in any department store out there.
Yeah, now unless you have like a mom and pop like collector toy store or something like that, you're stuck with like an aisle or two at like Walmart or Target or something.
Yeah, and the aisles
they're all picked through.
Yeah,
they're all gone through by collectors or let me rephrase that, resellers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like it's not even fun to go because anything, even when there's something my kid does want, we just got to go online.
Yeah.
And that like takes away the fun aspect.
Dude, it totally did. There was an aspect to this stuff that's like the hunt. You know, getting to actually go somewhere and be surprised when you see something cool.
Yeah.
You know? That's not the same when you're just ordering some shit on Amazon.
Yeah, like I remember wanting Snake Eyes on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Like that was a big thing I wanted. And my mom went everywhere with us to try and find it and like to hunt it down. And that was fun. And we can't even do that with like my son was into the Thomas the Train, the little wooden Thomas the Train things. Like nobody sells them in person. We had to go online to get them. And it's just like that sucks, man. It's
locally here. There's a GI Joe scalpers and Hot Wheels scalpers. So if you want those,
and they're everywhere now. It practically doesn't matter where you are. Mm-hmm. Like they're the dudes who show up because they know when the trucks come in at the place and they show up and they grab all the shit they're going to grab and whatever else, and they talk to the people that work at whatever store it is, Walmart or Target or wherever the fuck it is, and they grab up all the good shit, and then they hop online and they sell everything on eBay.
Oh, that's some douchebag on one of the G.I. Joe groups. Today I saw he bought 5 of the Spintors and sold them for $110, $120 a piece.
Yeah,
and like
And
I get.
part of this also, part of this also is the fault of the manufacturers, because they are promoting online sales much more than they used to, and they are sending less product to stores than they used to by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do that, because they know they have guaranteed sales with less overhead by selling it through Amazon or wherever the fuck, it costs them less money. They have to make less deals and sign less contracts with stores to sell shit online than they do to sell it in a Walmart or a Target or wherever. And so part of it's on them.
The local, there's the G.I. Joe scalpers, the predominant two right now is a husband and wife team. And they tried to scam me out of like the figure. I happened to walk in the Target and got the Cobra Island figures exclusives. And the husband messaged me right away when I posted in the group. It's like, oh, I was just there. I didn't see them. And then, so I ran into them in the store before, so I know who they were. They lied to my face. Something about like G.I. Joe scalpers and stuff. They say, oh, I'm buying this for my son. It's the same story every time.
Yeah.
And after he asked me where I got them at, his wife contacted me. Asking, like, well, that's our anniversary. Would you sell these to me? He's like, no.
Yeah.
I know who you are.
Yeah. I'm lucky. I got one guy down here that owns not one, but there's a couple of them down here. But one of the dudes who runs he's got a comic book and toy store down here. And he's cool because I'll see him at like Target and stuff and Walmart all the time. And he's cool because he goes in there and he's very specific. If he's buying something at Target or Walmart, he's buying it for himself. And he buys one. And I've been in there before at the same time as him. And we're both looking at the same things. And, we're just talking and having a good time. Because he orders all his shit online for his store. And he's like, and he straight up told me, he's like, I will never, because I hate it when other people do it. He also actually used to work for Mattel. But he's like, I will never scalp shit from stores. He's like, I come in here to look for stuff for me. If it's something I can't get from one of my distributors, he's like, I never hoard shit. He marks up his toys $2 over what Walmart and Target can sell for, because it costs him a little bit more to ship stuff in because he's a smaller shop.
Yeah.
And he only marks it up like if it's $25 at Walmart, he sells it for 27 or whatever, whatever that is. And he's great. But that's not the majority of them, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
So they will go in and wipe out everything from the store. They don't give a fuck about the kids or whoever that want to come in and pick this stuff up. They don't give a shit.
Oh, you got some of them. If you leave your buggy at 10, they'll yank it out of your buggy.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And that's ones that get not the shit beat out of them too.
Yeah. But yeah. Back to G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is awesome. I love G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe deserves all the credit in the world for being one of the greatest toy lines to ever exist, hands down.
Yep.
I wish kids would get into it again. I encourage parents out there, if you have kids young enough to still be into toys, like, buy them some stuff. Buy them some G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to sit there and be like a fucking, completist or anything. Buy them a couple. See what they think.
I think toys only have a relevance because of us older people that grew up with the shit. Toys now just doesn't mean the same as it did.
Well, it depends on how you raise your kids. If you're raising your kids with a fucking iPhone in their hand, then yeah, you're right.
In the past 15 years, they've changed their the entire marketing strategy from these toy companies. They used to be like, oh, the collectors are only like a small part of the percentage of our sales. Not anymore.
Yeah, no. Super chat from MSB says, I just about killed to have an original Hot Wheels Mustang in red way back when they first produced Hot Wheels. Oh, dude. I will give it up to Hot Wheels, though. They're probably the only toy company that's probably produced way more shit than G.I. Joe. So that's true.
Fair.
I had so many of them growing up that I fuck.
Yeah.
Those early red rim Spectre Flames, them things are expensive cars.
Oh, dude, some of those old ones, man, are insanely priced. You can find those old
Extremely.
cars from the 60s and 70s that are still hell. Fuck, there's shit from the 80s and 90s that.
That's the other thing. You used to be able to pick up at yard sales all the time, like 25 cents a piece or whatever. Like,
oh yeah, easily all day, or hell, half time it'd be like 10 for $1,
yeah,
or something like that.
Some crazy shit like that.
It's still, the channel's still up, but he don't post anymore. Because YouTube just kept kind of like screwing him over, and he still had over 100,000 subscribers, but he was big into like restoring Hot Wheels. Diecast Resurrection.
Oh yeah,
he would do those Spectre Flame paint jobs and just beautifully polish. He'd like zinc plate the cars and polish them out, then put the Spectre Flame on them.
I love watching those restoration videos. there's several channels on YouTube that do it, where it's just like old toy, whether it's old school like Hot Wheels or whether it's like a Millennium Falcon from 1978 or whatever it is. I can watch those videos all fucking day of just dude and just some of the cool stuff. And I know there's like, if you're into collecting anything, but especially with toys, there's like a whole half of the fucking group of people who do that are so opposed against restorations. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
like, it's one thing if somebody's restoring something and trying to sell it to you like it's original, but like some people just want to enjoy the shit they have, and if they want to fix it up to remind them of when they were a fucking kid and get some nostalgia out of it, like what it doesn't fucking hurt you. Who gives a shit? So, but I don't know. But I don't know, man. I'm just glad I grew up in the 80s. I can't say I feel bad for my kids for not really being into it. My son, because he was born in '99, so he caught the tail end of that as he was a kid when toys were still relevant. Before smartphones and all that shit. So that was kind of really the last one. Like my girls, they had toys. My youngest is 8. She still has toys, but it's not the same. It's not the same as it was when I was 8. It's just not the same level. And I I'm sure she doesn't feel that way, but I feel like, oh man, I feel kind of bad that she's not going to get to do that, have that same experience with those things and that same level of creativity and imagination that goes into doing that and creating your own stories and things like that, as opposed to just, everything now just feeds you whatever story it wants you to have, whether it's a video game or a show or, whatever the fuck it is, even videos on YouTube. Right. So, I'm glad I grew up in the 80s. I feel kind of bad for the kids that didn't grow up until the 2000s or 2010s or whatever, because it's just kind of a lost, dying thing, But I'm glad I got to experience it. I loved growing up in the 80s. I think the 80s was just a fantastic time to be a kid.
Yeah, I wish I could have enjoyed more of the 80s than what I did, because I was born in 85, so I remember 88 and 89.
Yeah. So I remember a while back a study where they were talking about where modern kids are more into tablets and phones and computers instead of physical toys. Their hand-eye coordination has actually gone down.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Huh.
Physical dexterity. It's an old study from several years back, but
Jesus, I would think playing video games with the controllers and shit, like your coordination would go up, but
right.
Yeah.
Fucking controllers with 17 fucking buttons on them and shit now, but
and I'm back then when you had less buttons too, though. Maybe when they did a study too.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, Nintendo had 2 buttons and a fucking D-pad. That was it. Like, then we've managed to make that shit work with Street Fighter somehow. I remember that. But well, no, I guess by the time Street Fighter came out, it was the Super Nintendo, and you had 4 buttons. Ooh. So, but anyway, no, I just wanted to give G.I. Joe some love today on today's Geek Chat. In addition
G.I.
to
Joe was great.
Yeah, I think it deserves some. It deserves some love, man. G.I. Joe's awesome. I was glad I grew up with G.I. Joe. I give them a lot of credit for not just like a cool toy to play with, but like fuck, dude. Like, just like Duke was saying earlier, like there was a level of, and I'm sure it was all commercialized and shit. And so I'm not gonna, the incentive was always about making money for them, and that's fine, whatever. But like, there was an aspect of that was really cool in the sense that there was some pride in those toys as far as being American and some being patriotic and loving your country and stuff that we just don't have anymore. And I'm not saying it's always good, but I guess it's all fucking propaganda in one way or another, whether it's for money or whatever. But the 80s were a good time for national pride, and you got to experience that as a kid, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I know it was all commercialized and shit, but I thought it was done well, and it made me love being born in the country I was born in, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, even in the 90s, the same feeling you had.
Yeah. So and now it's kind of frowned upon to be proud of the country that you live in,
Hate the flag,
and I would assume and expect and 100% respect that people born in other countries in England or Japan or wherever are proud of the country they're born in, and we should be too. And having those toys was kind of a part of that, and I think it's a shame I think it's a shame that kids feel like they're because I think there is a active kind of push. I'm not trying to turn this political, I promise people, but I think there is an active push to get kids to not be proud of being, born in the United States. And I think you should be proud of wherever you're born, wherever the fuck it is. You should be proud of being born there. And as you grow up, you should seek to try and make it a better place. And I think we've lost some of that. And I feel like G.I. Joe was a good example of a time when whether it was because of money and all this other shit, I get it, and commercialization, but there was things out there that encourage kids to be patriotic and be proud of the country they were born in, be proud of the United States of America. I think that's a good thing. I know not everybody nowadays does. I think it was. I think it still is. I think regardless of what the fuck you believe, you should at least be proud to be from this country that gives you the fucking right to fucking hate whatever the fuck you want and talk shit about whoever you want. You should be proud of that. There's a lot of other countries you can't do that shit in. You know what I mean? Most other countries, you can't do that shit in without getting fucking arrested. So at the very least, you should have a little respect for where you were fucking born. But I digress. This is a geek chat, not a politics chat. So
do you think we'll get any more G.I. Joe movies?
I don't know. I mean, maybe at some point, but the 3 live action movies we've gotten, the first one was fucking awful. I actually like Retaliation, but it's not a great movie or anything, but I think it's a fun movie with The Rock and Bruce Willis and shit. I actually, and maybe it was because I had heard it was such a bad movie, and there goes Duke. But I actually liked the Snake Eyes movie that came out a year ago or whatever. It wasn't a bad movie. I liked it. I thought it was a fun movie. It's a G.I. Joe movie. You know what I mean? I wasn't expecting fucking Shakespeare or anything, and it's certainly not. Yeah. But was it a fun movie with martial arts and swordplay and cool shit? And I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. It was a fun G.I. Joe movie. I don't know if we're gonna get any more of that. Who knows? I think because Hasbro owns all those rights, and I don't think they've made very good choices when it comes to what they do with those rights when it comes to movies. Honestly, they've put out some really bad shit. So. They're certainly not Disney, and they don't really use their properties wisely, in my opinion. Although they probably think they do because of how much money all the Transformers movies have made, even though arguably most of those movies are horrible. There's a couple of good ones. Bumblebee and the first Transformers movie are truly good movies that I really
Bumblebee was my favorite one.
Bumblebee is the best one. Yes. Bumblebee is hands down the best one, and a solid number 2, I think, is the very first Transformers movie.
Yeah,
I think it's a good movie. Other than that,
the best
garbage.
One.
Yeah, other than that, I don't think they're good movies. I
have to agree with that.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Transformers fan, and I don't like those movies.
Yeah,
Bumblebee was all right.
I liked Bumblebee a lot. We actually got to go to an early screening where we got to review the movie and shit. We got an invitation to go, and so I got to see that movie 3 weeks before anybody else did.
Nice.
And it was actually pretty cool. I got to write a review and shit about the movie, and I thought it was great. It was the perfect Transformers movie because it's set in the 80s. It had all the great music and soundtrack. It felt like an 80s thing. It was very nostalgic. I loved the fact that the movie was brought down as far as all the Michael Bay shit was just so overdone and too many explosions and fucking 50,000 Transformers and huge battles and all this shit. And Bumblebee was just a much simpler movie and focused more on just Bumblebee and then the human character and then just a few things. I thought it was just a great movie. Just
That's how it should have started. So
yes, absolutely. And there was aspects of that in the first Transformers movie where it was very much about Bumblebee and Spike. Well, not they call him fucking whatever. They didn't call him Spike, but that was fucking Spike, goddammit. And there was a large aspect of the first movie that was like that before the end big battles and all the other Transformers start getting introduced. And I think that's why it was a considerably better movie than any of the other ones, is because of that, which is why I still like it. But, as far as G.I. Joe movies go, I mean, maybe at some point they do another one or something, but I'm not really expecting it because the movies haven't really been that good. A couple of them I find enjoyable, but I wouldn't sit there and classify them as like must-see movies or anything. And the second one I like, it's not even, I mean, it is a G.I. Joe movie, but honestly, it's a Rock and Bruce Willis movie is what it is. It's a Rock and Bruce Willis team-up action movie that's called G.I. Joe, Well,
they killed off Duke at the first of the movie.
Yeah, which honestly, after the first movie, I was like, they could kill off everybody in that fucking movie. I don't give a shit. That first movie fucking sucked.
Isn't that the one that where Joseph Gordon-Levitt was
Cobra Commander? Yeah,
Cobra Commander. Yeah,
that movie was fucking horrible. Fuck that movie. I love G.I. Joe.
It was all
fuck
right.
that movie.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
they try to go too campy with it, and they didn't need to do that.
No, they didn't. So, but anyway, guys, that is it. We are done for this evening. We're done with the Geek Chat. So we'll be back. Of course, next week we're going to be talking about how The Walking Dead ended. So we'll see tomorrow, and then we'll talk about it next Saturday. So that will be the big story of next week. But other than that, of course, on the Never Enough Ammo channel, we'll be doing shows all week as we usually do. And that's it. Go home, people. Go home. You don't have to go home, but you probably already are. But either way, you can't stay here because we're shutting this thing down. We're running it into the ground. So we will see you guys down. Oh, Jesus Christ. Now you decide to speak. You showed up 2 minutes before we're done.
Fucking shut the fuck up for
and then, first of all, you don't even bother to show for the whole fucking chat. And then at the last minute, I'm trying to shut it down. And now you want to interject?
Yeah, because you never let me, promote my channel without
You've been here for 2 fucking minutes.
Right, which is why I'm here. Because we're going to do the
just to promote your channel. This is just a means to an end. This is just selfish gain on your part. That's all it is. No, go ahead.
Literally no other reason. No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead.
But yeah, we're starting at 9:00 Mountain Time because someone likes to go over in time on his chat for some reason.
Because I can.
No, just kidding. My son is working and I got to pick him up, so I set it for 9:00 here. So we'll start a little bit later than normal, just so you guys know it's a little bit less.
So about 45 minutes from now, right? About 45 minutes.
Like 50 minutes. Yeah, 45 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
So that's all. That's all I got.
All right. Well, everybody join us. I will be there tonight. I have no plans to fall asleep prematurely tonight. So I will see you
now.
I said, well, I got nothing. Like last week I did because I went and started watching a show with my wife, and I made the mistake of watching it in bed, and then I fell asleep before Honda's show started. And then this week I don't have anything to watch. So I'm just going to be hanging out on my computer until Honda starts the show. But all right, guys, we're going to get out of here. We'll see you guys later. Deuces, yo. We will see you next week where we'll talk about the horrible end, inevitably, that will be the last episode of The Walking Dead. I'm sure it's going to completely fucking suck. So we'll talk about that next week. So enjoy that. And then we'll see you guys later. So, all right, we're out.
Later.
Later.